Okay, hello out there in video land. Here at the James Joyce Readers, we're continuing with our reading of Ulysses. We are in the Ithaca chapter, and I'll give you the page numbers for two different editions if you happen to have one of them. One is the Wordsworth edition, which is a nice, inexpensive paperback, and we're on page 580 for that one. And then there's the Gabler edition. And for the Gabler edition, it's page 550. With that being said, I'm the first reader. Everybody on the screen gets a chance to read. And then when everybody has read, we're going to come back and we're going to begin looking at what we've read and make comments and ask questions, all that stuff. So here we go. What concomitant phenomena took place in the vessel of liquid by the agency of fire? The phenomena of ebullition, fanned by a constant updraft of ventilation between the kitchen and the chimney flue. Ignition was communicated from the faggots of precombustible fuel to polyhedral masses of bituminous coal, containing in compressed mineral form the foliated fossilized decidua of primeval forest, which had in turn derived their vegetative existence from the sun, primal source of heat, radiant, transmitted through omnipresent luminiferous diathermanous ether. Heat, convected, a mode of motion developed by such combustion, was constantly and increasingly conveyed from the source of calorification to the liquid contained in the vessel, being radiated through the uneven, unpolished, dark surface of the metal iron, in part reflected, in part absorbed, in part transmitted, gradually raising the temperature of the water from normal to boiling point. A rise in temperature expressible as the result of an expenditure of 72 thermal units needed to raise 1 pound of water from 50 degrees to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Next reader, please.
What announced the accomplishment of this rise in temperature? A double falciform ejection of water vapor from under the kettle lid at both sides simultaneously. For what purpose could Boom have applied the water so boiled? To shave himself. What advantages attended shaving by night? A softer beard, a softer brush if intentionally allowed to remain from shave to shave in its agglutinated lather, a softer skin if unexpectedly encountering female acquaintances in remote places in customary hours, quiet reflections upon the course of the day, a cleaner sensation when awakening after a fresher sleep, since matutinal noises, premonitions, and perturbations, a clattered milk can, a postman's double knock, a paper reread while relathering the same spot, a shock, a shoot, with thought of aught he sought, so thought might cause a faster rate of shaving, and a nick on which incision plaster with precision cut and humected and applied adhered, which was to be done. Next, please.
Why did absence of light disturb him less than presence of noise? Because of the surety of the sense of touch in his firm, full, masculine, feminine, passive-active hand. What quality did it, his hand, possess? But with what counteracting influence? The operative surgical quality, but that he was reluctant to shed human blood, even when the end justified the means, preferring, in their natural order, heliotherapy, psychophysicotherapeutics, homeopathic surgery. What lay under exposure on the lower, middle, and upper shelves of the kitchen dresser opened by Bloom? On the lower shelf, 5 vertical breakfast plates, 6 horizontal breakfast saucers, on which rested inverted breakfast cups, a moustache cup, uninverted, and saucer of Crown Derby, 4 white gold-rimmed egg cups, and open chamois purse displaying coins, mostly copper, and a phial of aromatic violet comfits. On the middle shelf, a chipped egg cup containing pepper, a drum of table salt, 4 conglomerated black olives in oleaginous paper, an empty pot of Plumtree's potted meat, an oval wicker basket bedded with fibre and containing 1 Jersey pear, a half-empty bottle of William Gilby and Company's white invalid port, half disrobed of its swathe of coral pink tissue paper, a packet of Epps soluble cocoa, 5 ounces of Anne Lynch's choice tea at 2 shillings per pound in a crinkled lead paper bag, a cylindrical canister containing the best crystallized lump sugar, 2 onions, 1 the larger Spanish entire, the other smaller Irish bisected with augmented surface and more redolent, a jar of Irish Model Dairy's cream, a jug of brown crockery containing a noggin and a quarter of soured adulterated milk converted by heat into water, aciduous serum, and semi-solidified curds, which, added to the quantity subtracted for Mrs. Bloom's and Mrs. Fleming's breakfasts, made 1 imperial pint. The total quantity originally delivered: 2 cloves, a halfpenny, and a small dish containing a slice of fresh rib steak. On the upper shelf, a battery of jam jars of various sizes and provenances. Orla.
What attracted his attention lying on the apron of the dresser? 4 polygonal fragments of 2 lacerated scarlet betting tickets, numbered 887, 886. What reminiscences temporarily corrugated his brow? Reminiscences of coincidences, truth stranger than fiction, pre-indicative of the result of the Gold Cup flat handicap, the official and definitive result of which he had read in the Evening Telegraph, late pink edition, in the cabman's shelter at Buck Bridge. Next, please.
Where had previous imitations of the results effected or projected been received by him? In Bernard Kieran's licensed premises, 8, 9, and 10 Little Britain Street. In David Byrne's licensed premises, 14 Duke Street. In O'Connell Street Lower, outside Graham Lemon's, when a dark man had placed in his hand a throwaway, subsequently thrown away, advertising Elijah Restorer of the Church in Zion in Lincoln Place outside the premises of F.W. Sweeney and Co. Limited, dispensing chemists when Frederick M. Bantam Lyons had rapidly and successively requested, pursued, and restituted the copy of the current issue of the Freeman's Journal and National Press, which he had been about to throw away, subsequently thrown away. He had proceeded toward the oriental edifice of the Turkish and Warm Baths, 11 Leinster Street, with the light of inspiration shining in his countenance and bearing in his arms the secret of the race, graven in the language of predictions. What qualifying considerations allayed his perturbations? The difficulties of interpretation, since the significance of any event followed its occurrence, as variably as the acoustic report followed the electric discharge, and of the counter-estimating against an actual loss by failure to interpret the total sum of possible losses proceeding originally from a successful interpretation. His mood: he had not risked, he did not expect, he had not been disappointed, he was satisfied. What satisfied him? To have sustained no positive loss, to have brought a positive gain to others, light to the Gentiles. How did Bloom prepare a collation for a Gentile? He poured into 2 teacups 2 level spoonfuls, 4 in all, of Epps soluble cocoa, proceeded and according to directions for use printed on the label, to each adding after sufficient time for infusion the prescribed ingredients for diffusion in the manner and in the quantity prescribed. What surrogatory marks of special hospitality did the host show his guests? Next, please.
Relinquishing his article right to the moustache cup of imitation Crown Derby presented to him by his only daughter, Millicent Millie, he substituted a cup identical with that of his guest and served extraordinarily to his guest and, in reduced measure, to himself, rich cream ordinarily reserved for the breakfast of his wife, Marion Molly. Was the guest conscious of, and did he acknowledge these marks of hospitality? His attention was directed to them by his host, Joyce, and he accepted them seriously as they drank in just serious silence Epps' mass product, the creature cocoa. Were there marks of hospitality which he contemplated but suppressed, reserving them for another and for himself on future occasions to complete the act begun? Reparation of a fissure of the length of 1.5 inches in the right side of his guest's jacket. A gift to his guest of one of the 4 ladies' handkerchiefs, if and when ascertained to be in presentable condition. Who drank more quickly? Bloom, having the advantage of 10 seconds at the initiation and taking from the concave surface of a spoon, along the handle of which a steady flow of heat was conducted. 3 sips to his opponent's 1, 6-2, 3-9. Lois.
What celebration accompanied his frequentative act? Concluding by inspection, but erroneously, that his silent companion was engaged in mental composition, he reflected on the pleasures derived from literature, of instruction rather than of amusement, as he himself had applied to the works of William Shakespeare more than once for the solution of difficult problems in imaginary or real life. Had he found their solution? In spite of careful and repeated reading of certain classical passages, aided by a glossary, he had derived imperfect conviction from the text, the answers not bearing on all points. What lines concluded his first piece of original verse written by him, potential poet, at the age of 11 in 1877, on the occasion of the offering of the prizes of 10 shillings, 5 shillings, and 2 and 6, respectively, for competition by the Shamrock, a weekly newspaper. An ambition to squint at my verses in print makes me hope that for these you will find room. If you so condescend, then please place at the end the name of yours truly, L. Bloom. Did he find 4 separating forces between the temporary guest and him? Name, age, race, creed. Next, please.
I think shall we pause here and go over what we read? Okay. Let me put a little mark here. And let me set Page 584. Okay. All right. So the first comment I'll make is, Katrina, you could tell your niece, is it, that will join us, that one of the things that we have a lot of fun with is just Joyce's plainful use of words
Yes.
and pronunciation. Of course, we, are a little different in our pronunciation here, but like the part that I read, this thing, the phenomena of ebullition, fanned by a constant updraft of ventilation between, I mean, you really should get a little dizzy and giddy when you read that, just because it's absurd. It's all, true and interesting and all that, but he, his love of words is very much in simple evidence here.
I'm really enjoying it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's almost like a children's song in some ways, you know,
Exactly.
but for adults because it's got big words, so
Mhm.
we can be comfortable reading it and having fun with it.
Mhm.
And I think someone pointed out that he got the number of thermal units wrong.
Yeah, we did say that last week, didn't we? I think I have 162 BTU then. What that means, no idea.
Okay.
British thermal unit.
Pardon?
Oh, okay.
British thermal unit.
Oh, thank you. Just as well you came back, Jim.
You're more than welcome, my dear.
Thank you.
Yes. Shortened to just thermal units in this case.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'll write that down for next time.
Okay. I mean, and who could
By
not
the way,
smile?
just on a point of clarification before we move on, and I think this is important, the British thermal unit has been surpassed by the SI unit, and I can't recall what it is.
What the SI unit means?
Yeah, what the SI unit is.
Well,
Okay.
that's what Mr. Google is for.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Never even heard of the SI unit.
no.
Behind the times or what?
It's the
Standard
it's
internet.
French System International, said in
Oh,
said in an Irish accent when it should have been said in a French accent.
Système international.
Okay, don't yeah.
Oh my goodness. How did that happen? That they let the French take over a term, supersede a term like British thermal unit.
Well,
Or
well,
It was
well,
adopted when the world had the proper order to it.
well, there
Obviously,
is
the
precedence.
system.
There is precedence. In 1066, the visitors came in and they took over the old Saxon realm and installed the French as the language of the nation.
actually, I'm reading further. It says it's also referred to as the metric system.
Yes, that would be correct. I think yes,
Yeah.
yes, the metric system. That's right, Lois. Yes.
I have to acknowledge your description of the French invasion of England as the visitors came in.
Mhm.
Very good.
It probably didn't feel like it at the time, but yeah, I think we can look back and say, yeah,
Yes, when one takes the long view.
that's right, Duncan, the long view.
Okay. So,
Did you all agree with the advantages of shaving by night?
No, I wouldn't. I would disagree. I think it's preferable to shave in the morning simply because there's less growth.
what? Shave in the morning simply because there's less growth?
There's less
Yeah?
growth at night, he says.
No, less growth in the morning.
Excuse me, you didn't lose half of your beard overnight.
Yeah, does the whiskers
It's going to be
dissolve?
24 hours regardless.
Okay, let's assume on Tuesday I shave at midday. Okay, now we move into Wednesday morning. A certain amount of growth has occurred. If I don't shave until Wednesday night, more growth will have occurred. That's
So
why
you have to do it at the same time every day.
well,
All right.
for me, the morning is preferable. I
All
don't
right.
always succeed, mind you.
At the risk of the milkman and the postman and everybody else knocking on your door, as they did in 1904.
Well, I don't put milk in my tea, so I don't have to worry about the milkman knocking on my door. But I take it black.
This reminds me of my older brother when we were kids. To save time in the morning, he had his breakfast before he went to bed.
Oh, there we go. All right.
Did it work?
I don't know.
It did for him.
Did it give him nightmares?
He seemed to be perfectly normal to me.
Okay.
I know what Jim is referring to. You're referring to the idea that if you eat late at night, it will give you nightmares.
Well,
Yeah,
that's only
or
if you go
reflux
swimming.
or indigestion or
Yes, my girlfriend has all kinds of little things like that,
Yeah.
and she's appalled when I tell her that I ate just before bed. So this is a trivial little thing, but I underlined. So it says, for what personal purpose could Bloom have applied the water so boiled?
Yeah.
Okay. So I underlined the could. And so I guess this is, either the narrator or Bloom thinking to himself, well, if I wasn't serving tea to this visitor, this water that I'm boiling, I would have used to shave. So, all right. And as far as shaving at night, my theory is that Bloom shaves at night because that's when he crawls into bed with his wife, Molly.
Mhm.
And since that relationship is the most important relationship in his life, and even though they do not have physical intimacies anymore, it is a habit that he developed earlier and has continued.
Yeah.
Even though from a outside the house point of view, it is much better to shave in the morning.
Mm.
So you're presenting a fresh face. Actually, I don't shave unless I'm going out or unless my whiskers have gotten enough where they're just uncomfortable to me. But I usually just shave like I'm going to go to the movies later today, and I'm going to pick up a friend to take to the movies with me. So I will shave.
Mhm.
It's my attempt. I'm a very simple dresser, so it's my attempt to convey that I am socialized to a certain degree.
Okay.
I do love the detail here, though, that he leaves his brush in the lather,
Mm.
shaves. And I do think that his thing where he says that he shaves, that he wants a softer skin of unexpectedly encountering female acquaintances in remote places at uncustomary hours.
3 hours.
which of course I would say is purely imaginary and aspirational,
Absolutely.
but doesn't actually happen anymore.
Hmm.
So can anybody explain the last half of that paragraph, the part that's after when awakening after a fresher sleep, since matutinal noises, premonitions, and perturbations.
Ah, I think I know.
Okay.
Mhm.
All these things that happen in the morning would cause you to shave faster because they are just uh, inconveniences and things that take your attention away. Because it seems to be what he's concerned about is at the end of the day, you would shave faster and cut yourself.
You might, yeah, okay. And you might be shocked by some of the noises and
Yeah,
whatnot. And your hand might slip and
yeah, all these interruptions.
uh-huh.
Mhm.
Okay, and then we have, why did absence of light disturb him less than presence of noise? Answer, because of the surety of the sense of touch in his firm, full, masculine, feminine, passive, active hand.
Active hand.
That's kind of a fun answer.
But it also refers back to the presence of noise described in the preceding paragraph.
Yeah.
So all that noise, whereas if you have an absence of light at night while you're shaving, and you'll have a presence of noise in the morning while you're shaving. So that silly sentence actually
Okay,
refers
right.
back.
Okay, so you're saying the absence of light means it's nighttime.
Right.
Yeah, it's darker.
Okay.
But
But
he
it,
has the surety of the sense of touch.
Yeah. You don't need the light, you know your own face.
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, I can, I can understand that. At the risk of exposing too much personal detail,
TMI.
I've begun shaving in the shower, which at first I was worried that if I didn't have a mirror in the shower. And at first I was worried that I would cut off half my mustache or I would cut myself. But I've actually discovered that actually I can do a perfectly good shave without seeing my face.
Hmm.
That's a recent development. I say that I started that maybe 3 months ago. Why I suddenly just started, I guess I must have been in a hurry and decided I needed to shave quickly. Started that. But I also like the answer, because of the surety of the sense of touch,
Yeah.
the full masculine, feminine, passive, active hand.
He also, Bloom has bad eyesight, right? Am I right about that?
James Joyce had bad eyesight.
But not Bloom. I
I
don't
think so.
remember.
No
Wasn't
glasses
there
for Bloom, as far as I know. Joe, do
some?
you know?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't know.
Not.
Okay.
I think the other thing is, I mean, I don't know how many of you get up in the night, but I get up in the night and I guide myself by habit and touch. you know, and so I'm pretty good at getting around in the dark without doing damage to myself
Hmm.
because
Mm.
I'll use my hands and feel stuff. And I think now here's a wild one for you. I think it's also because he goes around in the dark so he doesn't disturb Molly when she's sleeping.
Hmm.
Public.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Somebody tell, okay, so here's the question. What quality did his hand possess, but with what counteracting influence? Would somebody be kind enough to go through the answer?
Yeah, he's the operative surgical quality. In other words, he could perform surgery, but
Mhm.
the counteracting influence is his reluctance to shed blood, even in a good cause, in a justifiable cause, preferring all those non-bleeding methods like heliotherapy, light therapy.
Mhm.
I don't know what psychophysicoterapeutics are, but um, and osteopathic surgery. What's osteopathic? It's bone surgery, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably back then they didn't go. In other words, you just patch up a bone rather than cutting. But I think nowadays they cut.
Yeah, isn't physio psychotherapeutics, I think, is more holistic. It's the curing the body by treating the mind.
Yeah. Psychophysical therapeutics are curing, and
Yes,
psychophysical is the psycho is the soul, and
right.
uh,
Mind, body.
Hmm.
yeah,
So basically, he wouldn't completely forego osteopathic surgery, but it would be the last choice.
yeah, perform for him to perform. You see, operative like he could patch up a broken wrist or something, without spilling any blood, and
Is
then
that
the
Joyce
Oh, okay.
talking about himself?
say that.
Okay, even when the ends justify the men's preferring in their natural order. I think it could be for him, with he as the therapist or for himself as the patient. His preferences would be the same.
I was just going to say, is Joyce also talking about himself? Because didn't he study medicine?
Yes, it did, I think.
He
After a
could, he could be talking about himself, but he went through an amazing number of procedures. I mean, serious,
Yeah, absolutely.
serious procedures,
Eye surgery.
surgery.
I think it's 1919 get going for eye surgery. Even nowadays it's harrowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the line before is about the absence of light disturbing him less than the presence of noise.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
I
I
think
thought that was in relation to Bloom.
it
Yeah,
Yeah,
was.
but you know the way the narrator comes in and out of this, there's like parallel stories. So you're looking for connections. It's like he's talking to us about himself, but he's also talking about the story.
Right, right. And Joyce, as the author, has had this experience himself of having to navigate with at least the aid of touch.
yeah,
And that was became a more and more frequent experience for him
yeah.
as he grew older. And then we arrive at the shelves in the kitchen.
Mhm.
Could you get a more perfect description? Would you call Bloom middle class, lower middle class, Joe, for his time?
Oh, I would say middle class. He he's got he's got he's got an asset base. You know, when you come to going through all his assets, 5% loan stock and all this kind of stuff. I would regard him as kind of middle class, upper middle class, that sort of an area.
Mm-hmm. So as this section was being read, I'm thinking, God, this is such a interesting description. This is what people of middle class stature in Dublin had in their kitchen,
Yeah,
and it's pretty fascinating, really.
yeah. 5 breakfast plates.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he has in it, but he may have a stock room in which he's got a store of other,
Bring out the stuff for when you have a guest over or something like that.
If you had a family gathering of some sort, ask me, but this would be for day-to-day use.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you think about it, 5 is Bloom, Molly, Millie, who's just gone, and Mrs. What's her name? Mrs. Thorne, Mrs. Fleming, who has her
Who is
breakfast.
Mrs. Fleming?
She comes into your housework.
Okay, thank you.
Uh,
Couldn't figure that out.
and they've got one spare.
And were things in those days sold in sets? Because I'm wondering why we have 5 breakfast plates, horizontal, vertical, and 6 horizontal. Did they come in a package of a dozen? And one is gone, one is broken?
I would say
Yeah.
one had faster in the kitchen at some stage.
Mm-hmm.
Or perhaps
What's
it's
his name?
floor to feed the cat.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Quite fun. Quite fun. And then we get down to the bottom here. What
Well, the
attracted
chip
this
just,
attention?
sorry, Duncan.
Yeah, go
The
ahead,
chip,
Dan.
I just thought it was funny. Like he has 4 white gold rim egg cups, and he still has the pepper in his a chipped egg cup.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
No logic.
yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of logic to it.
Really?
So, yes. I have a chipped whatever that I don't use on the table, but I use it to put, stuff
Yeah.
in. You're not going to put it on the table, but it grabs the toothpicks. Let's say if you've got
Yeah.
toothpicks or things.
He was probably sparing the good one
Probably.
in true tradition of the Irish poor.
That's us.
Yeah.
As the extent of the chip as well. You could have a very small chip, or you could have a
Chip.
series.
Bit of fun.
Does everyone here? We were talking about errors. Does anyone, if I may, Duncan, the quantity subtracted for Mr. Bloom's and Mrs. Fleming's breakfast? That's an error in the original 92 version, 22 version. That should be Mrs. Bloom's breakfast. I don't know if Gabler has corrected that or not.
Oh, with added to the quantity subtracted for, okay. Well, I'm
For Mrs.
Okay.
looking at Gabler there.
Mm.
Katrina, I think our Lois, you have
Yeah,
Gabler.
it has no S. It's Mr.
Mr. Bloom and Mrs. Fleming's.
Yeah.
Should
Yeah.
be
Okay. Okay.
Mrs. Bloom's.
Yeah, well, later we find out that it's Mrs. Bloom that has breakfast. And that's an uncorrected error in Gabler, you see.
Oh.
Because she's the one that has the dairy cream. He specifically excludes himself from that earlier on in this episode as well. So that's a great example.
Huh.
Okay. How about the tickets?
Oh, it's fantastic. Polygonal fragments. He was furious.
Does that mean he made 2 bets?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
887 and 886. The tickets are one after the other, the betting tickets. For
Yeah.
himself and the other for the person he might have called an
Right,
invalid.
right. But whose tickets are these?
Oh, it's Boylan.
Boylan, because that's actually mentioned back along, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. The Boylan had also.
They mention that in Cyclops. They say Boylan
Cyclops, exactly. Thank you.
had bought tickets for a lady friend.
Yeah.
I
And he
imagine,
also lost.
I
Yeah.
imagine he just bought one for her and one for him.
hmm Yes, I found it. Boylan plunged 2 quid on my tip scepter for himself and a lady friend.
He's an untidy bugger, isn't he? That he just tears them up and throws them there on the dressing table. You know, his throwing his rubbish. You think he'd put them in the bin or put them in his pocket or something.
No. He's like the male cat. He's marking territory.
Yeah.
Good point.
You know, it may be totally unconscious, but he's marked the territory.
Yeah.
Boylan has been here.
Boylan was here. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and Bloom, with his surety of sense of everything and his firm, full, masculine, feminine, passive, active hand, he notices everything.
He did it. Yeah.
So, and even though there is no comment made when he sees the tickets.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's safe to assume that he knows exactly what those tickets are about.
Yeah. And Molly, he loses a lot of marks at Molly over that. The way he got angry. She didn't like that. We haven't found that out, but we'll find it. So it's,
When did he get angry?
when
When
he
did he?
was tearing up the tickets because he realized he'd lost on the horse.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
The face and you know.
Okay.
So he's
Yeah.
I really like the description. Temporarily corrugated his brow.
yeah. And you see the way it says the Gold Cup flat handicap in that section.
Yeah.
This is only gossip or chat. One day, one quiet afternoon, I used to do Mondays in Swedish. I was there, you know, and suddenly the doors burst open, and there were a number of very large Americans. I hate to say this, Duncan, they were from Texas.
Believe me, I know exactly what that means.
There's a mistake in Ulysses. There's a mistake in Ulysses. You see? And this is without coming in and saying hello, and we are, and just opening in, mistake in Ulysses. And I said, which one have you in mind? And I was there on my own, you know, it's nothing happening. This is better than standing there. And they said, hey, call it the Gold Cup, a handicap. It wasn't a handicap. It's not a handicap. My friend, he knows about horses. You know about horses. Tell him he made a mistake. You know, I said, yes, that's true. And that's how we know that Bloom does not know about the bet on throwaway, you see.
It's
Yeah.
on purpose.
Yeah. Well, that's the way I see. I was playing with them. I said, yes, that's how we know that if Bloom thinks it's a handicap, he doesn't really know anything about horses and racing. So we know it's a, so it's a mistake in Bloom's mind. He knows nothing about horses. And they just shut up. They stopped and they walked out. They didn't say anything else. They just come to Dublin, tell someone there was a Ulysses.
They had come to Dublin to enlighten.
And they'd straightened Dublin out, you know.
Right.
And they were all right, you know, but it's just their way
Yes.
they were excited about it as well, so I suppose. But they kind of they I think they were shocked that I could open the book and show it to them on the page without being asked where to, you know.
Good man, Joe.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know where they went next. And usually people will get in a chat with you and they'll want to read their favorite, and then you'll end up getting their email address and something like that, and they'll spend a few hours with you, and you get a little email from them when they're back home saying thanks for that. Very, very courteous people. But these lads, they know about horses. Tell them.
Especially Sweeney's is beautiful.
Ah, yeah. Oh, they weren't too good. I mean, they weren't being nasty. It's just their
No, no,
way.
no, but it's worth seeing and exploring.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. To get half an hour in Sweeney's talking to someone when there's nothing happening is a highlight of people's holidays.
Mm.
Mhm.
And they very often will find things that register with them. I've seen people weep in Sweeney's
Oh,
over things, and the things like we had I think they're still there, the various editions in languages, and there was I think was it Finnish translation, and a man just stood there, and I realized he was crying, and he said that book was by my father, my deceased.
Wow.
But to go in and see it in his language, and it was like moments like that. If I had the lads from Texas, I'd rather like them really.
Mm.
But it would have been some kind of undergraduate, to fill in for an hour, they would have had a completely different version how they straightened Dublin out. Anyway, so there you go. That handicap is another mistake. There we go, Katrina. You've spotted another one.
Joe, before we move on, I'm not clear on what the mistake is.
The Ascot Gold Cup is not a handicap.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That word is superfluous there.
Okay.
So you don't get a handicap in that. The idea of a handicap, you have an advantage, you get so many yards and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And
the
the late pink edition, the pink edition is the racing results version.
Okay. I am totally oblivious to anything to do with racing or golf.
Yeah, me too. But the late pink edition, a lot of people think, oh, that's the Financial Times, or Financial Times in pink nowadays. But the Evening Telegraph late edition, you bought the pink for the racing results.
Okay.
Mhm.
I thought a handicap in horse racing was that they added weight.
Yes, that's I'm thinking in athletics, the handicap, in school sports, that you're carrying a few extra pounds and that sort of thing. Yeah.
And that's
They
why the jockeys
literally
have so light.
they put some kind of weights on the horse.
You usually, that's it. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Wow. I never thought about
That's
that.
guys.
I thought a handicap was like, the some sort of distance thing.
Yeah, because I know more about athletics than horse racing, and I just jumped to my default. Like so if you were in a handicap in like most school sports would be handicap, and someone is kind of an international champion at 17 years of age or something, he'll have they give the handicap to the others. You get a 10-yard start on him or something. I think the handicap is to do with the weight of the jockey as well.
Okay, I was going to say that would probably be the more sensible way to
jockey who gets on,
put on.
they equalize the weight of a jockey with weights, I think. But I'm open to anyone. Please don't.
No idea.
And in golf, they start with extra points, which they then have to lose.
That does
Yeah,
kind of.
they literally are assigned points.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Two mistakes were in lines of each other.
Well, then we have
Where's the second one?
The Mrs. Bloom and Mr. Bloom.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
And then the handicap. But that one is deliberate. Second one, if you believe me.
Then we have another way of the day is summarized.
Yeah.
How many times have we been given the summary of Bloom's day?
Ooh.
5 or 6 times at least?
There's an awful lot of them in the. Sometimes it's not the complete day, obviously. Yeah. Good question.
And this is a particularly succinct one, I think, because it's addresses.
Yeah.
And very short descriptions.
Ties in with the earlier during shaving, the advantages, quiet reflections upon the course of the day. Yeah, it's kind of.
I kind of like the final part of this. And he had proceeded towards the oriental edifice of the Turkish and warm baths 11 Leinster Street with the light of inspiration shining in his countenance and bearing in his arms the secret of the race, graven in the language of prediction. Someone want to tell me what that's all about?
I think graven is connected with engraved. I think it's an old word for something. Open to correction now, just in my own view. So I think that's so he bearing in his arms the secret of the race.
The newspaper.
What, Lois, can you tell me what line that's in?
340. 340.
340.
340.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So what Sloan does is he punts and refers us back to a chapter a long time ago, episode 11.
Yeah.
867. 11,867. Oh, 786.
Yeah, 7.
867.
867. 867.
7. 867.
What?
Yeah. Say half a crown, my poor little Prez.
Yeah.
PO 2 and 6, right me along.
Yeah. You see, the secret of the race is not the secret of Judaism, it's the secret of the Ascot Gold Cup.
Mhm.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
It's just a newspaper, you're throwing it away.
He
Yeah,
sounds like a total gambler thinking back over all the times he'd nearly gotten the answer.
yeah.
Yeah.
With the inspiration shining in his countenance is how he seems to bantam lions.
oh, got it. Oh, okay. That's
Lions
wonderful.
Okay.
know something. They don't. Oh, it's just
Carrying in his arms the secret of the
The
race.
race.
The
Yeah. I thought
newspaper
you got
tucked
that.
under his oxter, right?
Yeah.
Graven
Okay.
in the language of prediction.
yeah, just engraved, hidden in the language. Yeah, throw it away.
Yes. Which he subsequently did,
Yeah,
according to this.
yeah. People who read things into what you're saying that you're not saying. That's.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, also, but in the newspaper, don't they do they what do they call it? They show the handicaps of the horses, or they make predictions of
The
who will win
odds.
races. Do they do that?
Yeah, the field on the Racing Post.
Hmm.
Like it's so and so's favor to win 4-1, that sort of thing.
Well, they give you the betting, don't they? They don't try to guess it themselves, but they tell you the latest betting at the time of going to print, which gives you a hint as to what the bettors, the bookies think.
Mhm.
Mm.
So a 20-1 means this guy's not in with a prayer.
Right. Yeah, it
Mhm.
means there's no way this horse
They
is going.
go on previous form, don't they? And now they use algorithms to gauge that.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, bookies and then kind of inside knowledge. Someone who knows the horse has a cold says it to a bookie. That so and so's horse his dad's been down all week with a cold, won't be up to it. And the bookie then factors that in to his odds. And those who don't know it then pile in to put money into it and lose it. You know. So carrying his arms, the secret of the race.
We need Tom Kennedy for this. He's a horse. He loves races. He
Yeah,
loves horse racing.
Is
yeah,
that
He
right?
would know about form and how to read those papers on beyond.
yeah,
The language of prediction graven in the newspaper.
yeah.
The secret of the race. So, but then we got the next question. This is a biggie. What qualifying considerations allayed his perturbations?
There was any
This is quite a statement. Which one of you good people would like to interpret the answer to this? Oh, that's a head twist.
Okay.
I think has someone going to tell us? Annie, you want to tell us?
And
Slow.
have an explanation.
Slow, is it?
It seems to be the to do. I can't make total sense of it, but it seems to have to do with the how betting works. I say that because the next question is answer is he had not risked, he did not expect. I think that sheds light on it. That it has.
Okay, right. He had not been disappointed. He was satisfied.
Yeah. See, counter-estimating against an actual loss by failure to interpret the total sum of possible losses from successful interpretation. That's the way the bookie works. The bookie doesn't bother that he lost 10 grand on one horse.
Mhm.
It's how much he made overall and the losses. You hear that said. I had a friend who was a bookie, and I remember someone saying, like, he's deceased now, that he one day he lost 60,000 and he didn't care. 60,000 euro.
Mhm.
He didn't care because it has to be viewed over a year.
Right.
And he didn't get excited when he'd make 60,000. And it's all the time. It's something at that, if you in that area. His
Okay.
purchase.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. I think I understand what you're talking.
Yeah.
Difficulty of interpretation. Well, this is why Bloom doesn't bet, right?
Yeah.
Bloom is well aware of all the little twists and turns that can happen even on a sure thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then actually after the thing about he had not risked, he did not expect, he had not been disappointed, satisfied. Then the next answer is really, really interesting.
Light to the Gentiles.
What satisfied him? To sustain no positive loss. To have brought a positive gain to others. Light
to the Gentiles.
Right.
It sounds like Buddhist equanimity.
Yeah.
I think he just realizes it indirectly, although he didn't now correct me, that he actually helped some people accidentally by giving them the information they needed to bet on throwaway.
And they didn't do it.
Also, doesn't he affect the
I think
odds?
somebody did it. Did not somebody win on throwaway?
No.
Nobody.
No.
Not even the original guy who
No, he was turned off when he went into put down his bet.
Yeah, let him talk him out of it. But there's a sort of a feeling that what's our friend called? The reporter who writes El Boom. What's his name?
Joe Hines.
Joe Hines. We have no explanation where his money has come from. He's buying for
Yeah. I
public
was wondering, did he go up? Do you remember when they met in Aeolus and Bloom suggested that he go upstairs because the accountant or whoever gives out the money was up there? Did he go up and take it,
Well,
the
you
money,
see,
but he didn't pay it back?
we don't know. We
Mm.
didn't. We don't know because when in the opening lines of Cyclops, someone says, I says to him, "Where, Joe? Joe,
Or did you rob the poor box?
you robbed the poor box."
Yeah,
Came from, and it was the honourable member gave me the wheeze. Now the honourable member is immediately mistaken for Bloom.
that's right.
He says, "Yeah, I saw him skiting around the fish market." But the honourable member could be Naneshi, who's going to sign off the chit for the cashier, or it could be that he heard somewhere. But there's no. I've often
Explanation.
I've can't find how he would have found out the throwaway tip. But given that was probably all over Dublin, he may well, and that adds a very nasty twist to Cyclops. That there's a guy there who's actually doing the thing that they accuse Bloom of doing. And the only
yeah. Well, I mean, you'd have to be
pulling it out.
an idiot in that group to tell them that you won a bunch of money.
Yeah, but they expect you to be an idiot, and that's how you get into the group. And,
By being an idiot and sharing whatever.
he's silent. Well, he could say, "Well, lads, that's how I'm buying you a drink because of, No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
But there's no answer to it. It depends on how the honourable member. They think Bloom is a Freemason, you see. So the guy initially thinks, I don't remember it's Bloom. So there you go. But he brought positive gain to others as well with Mrs. Dignam. You know, remember he went over to Mrs. Dignam to secure the life insurance
Mortgage. Yeah.
wasn't handed out to pay off the debt, and that he's that could be like that she's Gentiles as well. You see, so he sheds light on the insurance business.
Right.
Or it could be that he accidentally shed a very brilliant light and someone made money out of it.
Uh,
We move into Gentiles.
Does light to the Gentiles also mean if you're just talking like they didn't believe me and now they do?
Well, that's it. Yeah, yes. Well, that was the idea of Jesus was bringing light to the Gentiles by preaching spiritual truth. That would be one type. It could just be knowledge.
Or it could be they thought I was lying, but I wasn't.
Maybe, but I actually take it as a direct thing where you tell somebody something and they go, "Oh,"
Yeah.
that they realize something is true or has happened that they didn't realize before. I had a very strange experience the other day. Speaking of such things, where I went to a movie, a very obscure, difficult movie. And I got there a little bit early and I noticed a whole group of teenagers. I mean, these were your classic gawky, weird teenagers between 16 and 18. They were almost all very tall, very skinny, and with big bushy hair. I thought, what in the world is this? Why are these people coming to this movie? And then I thought, nah, well, the name of the movie was Dogtooth, a Greek movie, which is very similar to a skateboarding movie called Dogtown. I thought, well, maybe they think they're going to see Dogtown. So I went in, and I like movies, and obviously you can tell because I'm here at Ulysses. I like obscure, difficult things to think about. And Dogtooth was right in that category. And so afterwards, my girlfriend left early. She had to go to a thing, and I came out and they were all standing around. And I said, "Did you have any idea what you were going to see in that movie?" And they said, "No, nothing at all." And so I said, "Well, what did you think of it?" And they thought, and there were a couple of them who were articulate, and they said, "Well, I think there's really something to the movie, but I have not a clue what it is." So I said something equally obscure, like, "Well, I think you're going to think about this probably over the next couple of weeks, and you're going to find some nuggets inside of it, because I'm going to think about it for the next couple of weeks." Anyway, it was kind of fun, and it was kind of like, you know, anyway.
Do you not find when you're stuck in a film and it's a bit challenging that you start thinking about how it's made and that the whole secret of a good film is that you don't is that you're lost in the action of it, that you're not conscious of the artifice. So when people talk, when you're in the story for the first time, and then another time you go back and it's the language or the grammar of a book or how it's written. But when there's a story, a narrative, you're stuck in the story.
Right.
But then if it's an art film, you start looking at the film shoots and the camera distance and the point of view and the editing and the music. And so the first time you go and see it, it's an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Orla. And actually, it's usually the movies which I go, what the hell was that about?
Hmm.
Are
And
you
then
familiar with Mulholland Drive,
Mhm.
this movie?
I know the name, and I may have seen.
Okay, it's a really obscure movie, but at work at the moment we're having these what we call summer camps, and what happens is these kids come in. They can be from like 12 up to 17, and they do this little electronic circuit, and we're there to help them. Now it's quite intense because they're so young and they've had no experience of this. But one of the kids, he called me over. He had some problem, and as I was fixing the board for him, he started talking to me. And he asked me what kind of movies I like, and I couldn't think of anything. And all I said, I just recently finished watching Band of Brothers, you know, the HBO series. As well, I said I watched Band of Brothers. I like that. And then he says, "Did you
Mhm.
ever see Mulholland Drive?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." I said, "But I couldn't really understand it." Well, he gave me a blow by blow breakdown account of it. The guy was able to relate. It was like someone interpreting Ulysses for me.
Uh-huh.
To my now, I've seen it, but it's a zany, obscure, over my head anyway film. I couldn't make head, ass, nor tail of it. But this kid, he was really into it.
He was into it, right? It somehow it got his attention. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and actually, he was tall, very, very skinny, and he had long hair that would have been
Mhm.
fashionable in the 60s.
Mm.
Yeah. Uh, uh, yeah. 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 You know, I went to see the Kurosawa movie, and I think I mentioned this before. I went to see the Kurosawa movie Ran, which Ran means chaos, or a big storm. And it's basically, in fact, I'm sure I mentioned it before. It's basically Kurosawa's version of King Lear. So I went to see it. It's almost a 3 hour movie, and I kind of got myself into a situation where I, I had to go see it again.
Mm.
I won't go into the explanation of that, but it happened, and I thought, well, it'll be okay. You know, I can just take a nap, you know, and just coast through the movie. So I went to the second time. This is like 4 days later, and the movie opened up for me.
Yeah.
I was shocked. It really opened up. I really began after I just, you know, I had the basic story in my head and I could just concentrate
Mm.
without grasping.
Mhm, mhm,
The movie opened up and so I'm realizing that, you know, once again, there's like books like Ulysses, there are other art uh, creations which really need to be experienced multiple times
Mm.
in many different directions, including what Orla was talking about, going into, you know, how's the production done, you
Mm.
know, all kinds of stuff. So, yeah.
Mhm.
We're almost here. So let's do one more little thing here. So he brought light to the Gentiles, and then we have how did Bloom prepare a collation for a Gentile,
Huh.
Mm.
which I think is wonderful because we go from this kind of grandiose idea of bringing light to the Gentiles, and now he's going to bring it down to serving Stephen a cup of
Okay.
cocoa.
Hmm.
Any comments or questions about that?
Sounds pretty straightforward.
That one's pretty straightforward, right? What supererogatory marks of special hospitality did the host show his guest?
Oh,
He gives him a Molly's cream.
yes, and he doesn't use his mustache cup.
And that goes back to the breakfast, you see, again.
Mhm.
So I looked up superposiarchal,
So
which is basically giving up a privileged position.
yeah.
So as the host, he could have used a mustache cup,
Yeah.
but instead he used the same type of cup that he's serving Stephen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Oh, and he took some cream himself, you see. That's only to be nice.
He put the cup identical with that of his guest, so they're both drinking out of the same type of cup. And he served extraordinarily to his guest and in reduced measure to himself the viscous cream ordinarily reserved for the breakfast of his wife, Mary and Molly.
Huh. That's a very nice detail.
It's a very nice detail. Of course, it's just in Bloom's head. I mean, Stephen would have no idea of any of this.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it is a nice detail.
But it's something that he thought that he thinks of. Yeah.
He's a very sweet guy, Mr. Bloom is.
Yes.
He is doing his level best to make the world a better place.
Yes.
Mm.
Indeed. Excellent.
Excellent. I think excellent too. So we would start next time. Was the guest conscious of and did he acknowledge these marks of hospitality?
Okay.
So let's see, 7:10, 7:10:25.
Wow.
Excellent.
Mm.
So you're gonna have to maybe talk to your niece a little bit and tell her that we're getting really deep in the weeds here.
Yeah.
And if she likes that sort of thing, she'll have a great time.
Yes.
Mhm.
I'll try to explain it to her.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, she should come for the experience.
Well, that's what I was thinking. She could just come today just to listen, and see if this is going to work for her.
Okay,
That's
well,
great.
if you want to, I can send you the link of the recording today if she wants to a little preview,
That's
or
interesting.
we can make a
Yeah.
decision whether you want to expose her that way or just throw her in the deep water when she shows up.
Mm.
No, please send me the link. That's not a bad idea. Give her,
Okay, I'll do that.
because I don't know what she's imagining.
Okay, well, thank you all
Excellent.
very, very much.
Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you.
And everyone.
We are doing King Lear tomorrow.
Yep, I'll be here.
All
I'll
are
be here.
welcome. All right.
Thank you, Duncan, everyone.
Thank you, Terrell.
Happy 4th
Thank
of
you.
July.
Oh, happy
Oh,
Friday.
yeah.